The More Movement Crew.
Welcome to the More Movement Crew podcast. I'm your host, Kenina Porter, and this is episode number 8. So welcome. Thank you for checking us out. I want to quickly let you know, make sure that you subscribe by pressing the button below this video so that you can add and get the updates on what we got going on and all the latest videos, and definitely be a part of the More Movement Crew. So definitely subscribe to our channel. We want to hear from you. We want to know more about you. And today I'm super excited because we have another special guest, and we have 8 episodes. Like, can you believe it? 8 episodes. From like starting this podcast, I never thought like it was going to turn out to be like this amazing. And so I'm so excited about just my growth overall, but also the guests that I have on the show. And so today's guest, I cannot wait to talk to her. I cannot wait to pick her brain. And I'll have her introduce herself in a little bit. But before I get started, I have to quickly do, because I promised I was going to do a shout out to one of my listeners, Olivia. I just want to say hi, Olivia. Thanks for checking us out. Thank you for being such an advocate and getting your mom's phone and telling her to turn on the podcast on your way to school. I want to shout you out, Olivia. Thank you so much. Continue to listen to it, and I hope that you are blessed. All right. So before we jump into it, Miss Nikkia, we have a game that we want to play, and then after the game, I'll let you introduce yourself, and then we'll get right into it. Okay. Is that cool? All right. So the first game, the game is called 5 questions. Okay. All right. So question number 1. What is the most interesting place that you've traveled to and why?
That's hard. I feel like by default I should say France because it's out of the country. But then when I really think about it, probably the most interesting place I've ever traveled to is Washington, D.C. That was my first time flying, so that was a really cool experience. But also I got to meet President Obama and Michelle Obama. Wow. So you can't really, France,
you can't really top that. Ooh, yeah. I didn't know you got to do that.
Yeah, there's a video of me on Facebook. I recorded myself, and it's very dorky, but it's very genuine. I smiled very big at the end.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. That's like a once in a lifetime thing. Yeah. Like, people dream to meet the Obamas.
Yeah. I knew I was going to see Michelle. It was for the Beating the Odds summit that she had, but I didn't know that President Obama was going to be there until I was standing in the aisle, and I didn't know at the time, but it was Secret Service, but this man in a suit was like, you want to stay right here in a second? And I was like, okay. So I just stood there, and like the aisle parted ways, and I looked back, and it was Obama, and this lady fell out in her chair, and it was great.
Wow. Wow. That is amazing that you got to experience that.
Yeah, it was awesome.
People like wait in line forever just to like see a glimpse of them.
Yeah, I got to meet him, and I shook his hand.
That's dope. That is super dope. So yeah, that's definitely the most interesting place that you've ever visited. Sure. Yeah, definitely. All right, question number 2. What gets you out of bed every day?
My kids are watching. My students are watching. There's days where I have really, really bad days, and I'm like, gosh, I don't want to get up. I just want to go to sleep. I got 14 sick days in the bank. I can just stay here, right? And I'm like, no, I can't, because I got students that are watching me that I'm very open with them, and they know my background, and I want them to know, like, you got to keep going. Like you say, there's more. Yeah. You got to keep going. So just knowing that I have young people watching me, they're looking up to me. That's what gets me going.
That's great. That is great. And I can't wait for us to talk a little bit more about the kids, the students, and what you do. Okay, what color would you say best represents you?
Navy blue. There's a lot of significance to the color for me. It's dark enough to be like mysterious, but also like light enough to be classy and like go with all different types of things like silver and brass. And I think that I'm just an adaptable person, and navy blue is kind of like the new black sometimes.
That's really unique.
It's really not as awesome as just like a classic black, but like navy blue is like, okay.
It's like a little touch of color.
Yeah, just a little bit, just a hint.
That is pretty interesting. That's unique. And I'm wearing navy blue, so
it's my favorite.
Shout out to me.
Yeah.
Okay, question number 4. Name 3 songs, or you can do artists, that are in your playlist.
That's hard. I think that question's hard because you always have to narrow it down. I have to say Jack Harlow.
Okay.
I had to shout him out Confetti comes out at midnight. I'm very excited. That's his new album. And who else? Ari Lennox. Shea Butter Baby is just on repeat.
She's great.
And SWV.
Oh, really?
I gotta have my old R&B somewhere.
SWV. I just did not expect for you to throw SWV in there.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
It's About Time is my favorite album.
Really?
I listen to it at least 3 times a week.
See, she's a real fan. A real fan.
Yeah.
Shout out to SWV. Because that just was a time, like I was growing up around that time, so I feel super old. But SWV, that's like good music, you know?
It just is.
It makes you feel good.
I remember in high school we had like a talent show and somebody sang it and the whole school just sang it together. And that's when I was in high school. And then last year I was walking down the stairs at work and I actually ran into some students that were singing it, practicing it for choir. And I was
What song was it?
Classic. Weak.
Weak. I knew it was going to be Weak.
You know it is, always.
Everybody loves Weak. How can you not sing Weak? Like that's good. SWV, that's awesome. Okay, last question. What was the best advice you were given?
I've had a lot of great mentors, so I've had a lot of good advice. Don't let others' expectations define who you are. My dad taught me that right before he passed away, and that is something that has stuck with me for a long time because I feel like as a young person, as a person who's pretty advanced for my career to be so young, there's always expectations. And sometimes they're too high, sometimes they're low, and I just feel like you got to make expectations for yourself. And as long as you're meeting yourself at where you want to be, then you're doing something productive.
That's good advice. It really is good advice. And yes, you got so much experience. So now we get to finally talk about that experience. So that was 5 questions, game 5 questions. And now we're going to move into the actual topic of the show. So I want her to introduce herself. But before she introduces herself, I'm going to give you a little bit of background as to how I know Chef Nikkia. So Nikkia and I, we worked for nonprofit Youth Build Louisville, and I would see you come in and you would do a lot of work with our organization, and then you became a part of the organization officially, and you've been doing really great things. She was teaching our students how to cook. She taught some of our staff also, and not just how to cook, but how to like properly, do things in the kitchen, and how food can really be more than just eating food. Food means more things than, it means bonding time. It means so much more. Yeah. And so I just watched you grow. I watched how you've kind of set goals for yourself and you kind of exceeded those goals. And so I thought you would be perfect to come on the show.
Well, thank you.
I kind of wish that we would have did like some cooking. Like we could have cooked something and people could have watched us cook. Maybe that could be another episode.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll do that. So go ahead and introduce yourself.
All right, so I am Nikkia Rhodes, and now I'm getting to be kind of a little bit more known as Chef Nikkia Rhodes, which feels really good. What else how should I introduce myself to the group?
Just tell what you do.
Okay. So I'm a culinary instructor at Iroquois High School. I teach all grades. That's usually the question I get, like, what grade do you teach? And it's all of them. And I love all of them very much. I have about 100 students, and they're great. I've been teaching there for 2 years. This is my 2nd year.
Awesome. So the first way to get started is I love hearing about how people became interested in what they do. Okay. So how did you know that being a chef was a goal, something you wanted to do?
It's the only thing in my life that felt natural. It's the only thing that it just clicked automatically and felt effortless. My mom and my grandmother managed the homeless shelter kitchens with Volunteers of America when I was growing up. So if there wasn't school, if I was sick, if I played hooky, then I was hanging out with them in the kitchen. And they joke all the time and they'll tell you, we changed her butt on stainless steel tables. Like I just grew up in the kitchen. There's pictures of me sleeping in grocery baskets as a kid, from where my mom would load a grocery basket to load food into the homeless shelter. So I just kind of grew up in that environment, and whenever I went to high school, there was a culinary program and it just clicked. I figured, well, I like to watch Rachel Ray and Guy Fieri on TV, and my mom works in the kitchen, so I'll do it too.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty unique, just being able to see how you were exposed to that at a young age, and you automatically were able to know that was your passion.
Yeah.
Because I was just wondering, how did she get into it, and you got into it at a very young age,
Yeah.
which is super, super important.
I mean, I got to watch it and, you know, kind of grow up in it. But then whenever I went to school and realized, like, oh, you can go to college to cook. Like, this can be like a real career. And you can actually do like a lot of really cool things. That's whenever I started to get a lot more serious about it. And I've always felt very fortunate that, like, by age 17, I was like, I'm going to work in food. And, you know, that's something that a lot of my peers, they didn't know. You know, people go into debt, going to college, not knowing what they want to do. And I had to go and know exactly what I wanted to do, how I wanted to do it, where I wanted to go.
That's a blessing. Mm-hmm. So you said really cool experiences. You had a lot of cool experiences. You worked under Chef Lee for a while, and you've done a whole bunch of other things that I probably have no clue about. So can you tell me about, like, tell our audience about like the cool things that you've gotten to do through culinary?
Yeah, so the coolest thing was about a year ago. I got to go and cook at the James Beard House, which, if you know anything about the culinary industry, that is one of the highest honors that you can have as a chef in this country. And to be 21 at the time, whenever I did that, was huge, because the only other person who was that young to do it was Brooke Williamson. Chef Brooke is based in California. She cooked at the James Beard House when she was 16, and she's a mentor in Ed Lee's program now. So that was probably one of the coolest trips. And I'd never been to New York, and that's where the James Beard House is. I've been able to travel to, like, Arkansas, and I just got back from North Carolina last week, and I'd never been there.
That, yeah.
I went to Atlanta and did a week-long externship under a chef who's, it was a female chef, Chef Ann Quatrano. She has 6 restaurants down there, and this beautiful home with lots of land where she grows food for a restaurant. And I've just been able to see a lot of really cool things in the world and meet a lot of really cool people.
Wow. So the one thing I do know about being a chef is that the industry is, like, hardcore. It can be a hardcore environment. Like, speak to that. Like, speak to, like, just the industry. It's, like, very demanding. Can be long hours.
Yeah. So the work itself is physically demanding. There were times whenever I was first starting my career, I was in culinary school and I was working. So I would get up. Culinary school is long because you have to have time to cook and clean and lecture about what you're cooking and cleaning. So we would start class at about 8 o'clock in the morning, and class would go until about 3. And I did really well in those classes, and I would usually get done with my work early and ask my professors for extra work so I could learn more stuff, and I really enjoyed it. And then at about 4, I would either walk or catch the bus to Milkwood, which is one of Ed Lee's restaurants, and work there until about 11 o'clock at night, and then go home, do homework, and shower, and do all that stuff, and do it all over again. So it's very hard in the restaurant industry to have work-life balance. I think that it's shifting. I think that people are starting to realize, like, hey, people got to be able to take care of themselves too, you know, and we're starting to see a better balance in that. But the industry itself is just very demanding in that way. And then you have people's egos. Yeah. Talk a little bit about that. Talk about, like, being in the kitchen. Yeah. I mean, being in the kitchen, it can be very competitive. People are looking at you and they want to know that you're a pro. They want to see that you really know what you're doing, know what you're talking about. And it can be really intense and really scary. I remember my first time working in a real restaurant was Milkwood, and my first big weekend was Derby. Which is, like, if you're from Kentucky, you know that's, like, the worst. That's major. It's like the Grammys. To do the first, you know, like, service. Yeah, it's huge. So, and Milkwood is a really popular restaurant. Yeah. So we did, you know, probably 100 to 200, somewhere between there. I don't know the logical number, but it was a lot of covers that night. And it was my first night working with Edward, and I remember him being like, "You gotta work really fast." And I don't know how I did it, but I got through it. And it can just be really intense. You know, people are very serious about their craft. Wow. They're serious about being experts. That pressure, like, I feel like I would crack under that pressure and, like, drop something or burn something, you know, like, because you watch shows and it's like you have to be on point, and it's not all about, well, it's about presentation as well. And so the plate has to be plated. Yeah. And people are paying for that service. Yeah. So they want, you know, for it to look a certain way. They want for it to taste a certain way and meet their expectations. So, and they also want consistency. You know, if I go to this restaurant, I know I love this dish. I want to see it the same way the next time I go. If it's on the menu, I want to see something better or equivalent. Yeah. So, you know, it's a lot of pressure just to satisfy people. Wow. Wow. So I think I mentioned it a little bit before we started the show, but I have transitioned to
a vegan lifestyle.
Ooh,
right?
okay.
And so I'm about 2 months in, right? And I'm enjoying it. I'm loving it. But you mentioned that someone had a garden and they like grew their own vegetables and they had that like in the restaurant. Is that what you mentioned?
Yeah. So whenever I worked with Chef Kevin Ashworth at Milkwood, whenever I worked with him, he actually went out of town with Edward for a little while, and I ended up having to take care of the greenhouse. So 610 Magnolia actually has a greenhouse that's on their campus.
Okay.
610 Magnolia is actually like 3 or 4 different buildings, and they have a greenhouse. So they actually grow a lot of their produce. And then whenever I went to Atlanta, and Quatrano grows a lot of her produce. So that's something that I've been trying to get into at home myself, is making like my own food.
Yeah.
How can I start to source my own stuff and grow my own stuff, and just really trying to connect deeper into the culinary world as far as like, where does this come from?
Yeah, I think that's like super important. Just being able to like grow our own fruits and vegetables, and you did some of that when we were at Youth Build as well. We had food. We got food from the garden that we grew, and you showed us how to prepare and use those things. And so, like with my transition as a vegan, I'm really like exploring different recipes, right? Different creative ways to prepare fruits and vegetables, because I didn't realize so much. You can do so much with fruits and vegetables.
I think that veganism, is that what you would call it, veganism? I think that it gets a really bad rap for being like complicated, and people are just trying to make mac and cheese too hard. Yeah. And as a chef, I'm like, that's cool, you're pushing it. Like, what can you do with some cashews? You can make mac and cheese? Like, dang, that's pretty next level. I think it's awesome. So
I'm definitely learning that, and I want to come up with a lot of my friends are just like, oh, like when I say I'm going vegan, they're like, oh, you know, some of them are cool with it. But I think in, you know, certain communities and certain groups, it's just like, you don't eat meat? Like, what? You don't eat meat? So I want to do like vegan night, like maybe once a month, like Nina's vegan, I don't know, night or whatever, something. And just introduce like my friends and family and stuff to different vegan dishes, because I think it would be really cool.
I think people are just nervous and scared.
I think
like,
so
what
too.
do you mean cashew cheese? All I know is Velveeta.
Right. And then when they taste it, it tastes good.
Yeah, you never know unless you try it. My grandmother taught me that if you think you don't like something, you should try it at least 13 times. And I hate beets, but every time they're in front of me, I try them, because you just never know how somebody's going to make it. You just never know. And
there have been a lot of times where you've made things that we've never tried before, like appetizers for some of our fundraisers. And we're just like, here, what is this? And you're like, oh, this is this. We're like, okay. And you did the luncheon, so we also tried that. And so we were like, oh, this is really, really good.
Yeah, and some stuff's hit or miss, but you never know unless you try it.
Yeah. So I guess I want to ask, like, what made you decide to like get into teaching like at Iroquois? Like, how did that come about?
So I graduated from Western High School, and I had a really positive experience there. That school gets such a negative rap. When my mom found out that that's where I was going, it was my home school, she cried.
Wow.
And she and my grandmother, I remember listening to them talk on the phone, and they were like, well, we can apply here. And they were both going to work 2 jobs to try to send me to like Holy Cross.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they were not having it. But I went, and it was the best experience. I had such an incredible group of teachers and staff that really supported me and still support me to this day, and that I consider my family. So I wanted to kind of pass on that, because I recognized at a very early age that those people made the difference for me. I recognized at an early age that I had a very similar background to my peers. I had family issues, I had incarceration issues in my family, and drug abuse and all these types of things. But the difference was mentorship. It was people who were coming, who were looking at me, and adults who looked at me and said, well, I think that you can do more. And so they pushed me to do more, and that's what I did.
Wow.
So I wanted to pass that on to someone else. I wanted to work with a similar demographic of students that I thought I could be a role model for, and that I thought I relate to them enough that I can share that with them, and they'll know that I'm not putting up with their excuses, and that I can push them.
I love that. I love that. I love the fact that you're very open about growing up. You've been very open about it. I think you even were interviewed at one point about just your childhood and how you grew up. And I just think that's so important, being able to connect with kids at Iroquois High School.
Yeah, I think there's power in sharing your story, especially if you survived it. Give somebody else some gems, hopefully.
Yeah. Okay, I guess so my next question is, where do you see yourself going? What are your dreams, right? Because there's so many possibilities. Like, it's unlimited possibilities of what you can do.
Yeah, and I did not realize that until like the last year. At one point, I was just working. I was just doing it. I was like, I got a job, I got my school, and I'm just doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And it wasn't until last year, I did an interview for, I don't remember what station it was. It's like WFPL or something like that. But I did another radio interview, and they asked me that same type of question, like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And I was like, I see myself being a teacher at Western and teaching culinary, and that was my goal for a long time. And I told the instructor there, I was like, when you retire, you call me and you let me know, because I want your job. And that was my dream, and that I thought that it was going to take me a long time to get there. And then July rolled around, and I was trying to figure out my next steps. I was like, what should I be doing? Should I be going to get a certain degree? How do I even qualify for this job? That's all I was looking for. And then I went to a job fair with JCPS, and they're like, you already qualify. And I was like, oh, okay.
So it was a position open already?
Yeah. So it just happened to be a position. I went to the job fair, and I was like, I just went by myself and was like, I walked up to a lady that worked for JCPS and said, my name's Nikkia Rhodes, and I want to be a culinary instructor, and I just want to know what are my next steps. What do you guys need for me to do that, to qualify? And they said, oh, well, there's a position open at Iroquois High School. And I didn't know that, because whenever I was in high school, Western was the only culinary program. There wasn't anymore. So when they said Iroquois, I was like, oh, okay, well, I know where that's at, and I know they have a similar demographic of students. And okay, so I applied, and
got the job.
The job landed in my lap.
Yeah.
And I just knew it was meant to be.
It was meant for you. It really was. Like, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's great. I always wondered, like, how you got in that position.
It all happened so fast.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
But it's something that has surpassed anything that I dreamed it would be. I got to design that kitchen. Last year I didn't have a kitchen, and I lectured my students to death on foodborne illness and stuff like that, the boring things, but the very important things. And it turns out that a lot of it has stuck.
Wow.
They remembered a lot, so at least it was a productive, successful year. But I got to design their full commercial kitchen that we have this year. So,
which is dope. I've seen it. It's amazing. The kitchen is amazing.
Yeah, it was worth it.
Wow, that is awesome though, Nikkia. Like, I just marvel at like how, like, the mission, how your experience can really, really help our young people. I'm super passionate about just food literacy, like just in our community, people eating healthy, taking care of themselves. I think that I'm gonna be completely transparent here. As a single woman, I don't cook as often as I should, but I can cook. If anybody's watching, I can cook, right? But I just don't cook as often as I should. And I just see like the importance of actually doing that, and how it actually can relieve like stress for me once I like sit down and actually do it.
Yeah, it's an act of self-care. And like you kind of foreshadowed in the beginning of the podcast, food is more than just we're sitting down and eating. It is taking care of yourself. It is a way to connect with people. And that's something that I try to teach my students. Their goal as a school goal is to get certification so they can get a better job and stuff like that. But I also explain to them that the class is important because you need to know how to take care of yourself and take care of others. And, you're going to want to know how to be healthy. And maybe one day you'll have a significant other and you'll want to teach them how to be healthy. You'll have a family and you'll want to take care of them. And, food is, it's the center of a lot of things.
It really is.
Yeah.
It really is. That is great. So you're not thinking about ever opening your own restaurant?
No. I think
you said that so fast. I was like, no.
That's one of those questions that I get all the time. Do I want my own restaurant? No, never. I think that restaurant work is important. I think that everyone should work in a restaurant at least 1 year out of their life so they can learn how to treat other people.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's not something that I see for myself as far as like I don't have a concept or like some signature dish that I just have to stick on a menu and everyone needs to know. I do really enjoy doing like pop-up events and stuff like that.
Like catering, maybe?
Yeah, just like little pop-up things, or like, how I travel with like Lee Initiative and I get to just throw my name on the menu every now and then and feel special.
Or maybe have products that
Maybe.
could go in stores or something. Maybe.
I don't know about products. Like I said, I don't have like a signature thing yet.
Yeah.
I do think that I see myself transitioning the way that I do education. In a sense that I don't think the traditional classroom will always be the setting that I want it to be. So I see myself transitioning from that to like maybe an online platform or something like that. I know that I want my whole life to be about just sharing experiences, helping other people, passing on knowledge. But I don't know if I want it to be within the walls of a public school. Yeah. You know, within those restraints and restrictions.
There's definitely, so many options to do. If you want to stick to specific education, there's so many things that you can do. Yeah. Like, you could potentially have a TV show, and educate people and work on that. So, there's so many things that you could do, like the sky's the limit. And it's like exciting to really watch you grow and mature in that and take other students with you. Because I'm at Iroquois as well, on certain days helping students to transition to college. So it's like perfect to be able to have an example at the school to say, hey, if this is something that you want to do, you can do it just like Nikkia can. That's pretty cool. Thanks. So, the last question I always ask our guests is, when did you know that there was more? Just that defining moment where you said, okay, I gotta push myself to do something bigger.
When I got invited to go to the White House to meet Obama, and to participate in the Bid in the Odd Summit, I was like, wow, the White House.
Like, this is big.
Yeah, like I in school, I've always excelled academically. I had some troubles with behaviors and stuff like that sometimes, but I've always excelled academically, and I would receive awards for that and, recognition for school things. But that was the first time that I was being recognized on such a large scale for being resilient, for being recognized for kind of overcoming a lot of stuff. And that was when I was like, okay, someone has acknowledged that I've been through some things, and they have also acknowledged that I've beat those things. Now it's time to take it to the next level. Yeah. So that's kind of when I knew there was more. That I had more to do, and there was more to come.
Well, that is definitely your story, definitely the platform that you set, and I love how you set the bar. You keep elevating the bar, and I love that. I think that's super important, especially when people have overcome adversity to be where they are. Like, it's just so important. You as a woman of color, particularly, and just growing. I love it.
Thank you.
So I want to thank you for coming onto the show.
Thank you for having me. This is so cool.
And then I'm glad you enjoyed it, because I definitely want to see if we can come back and maybe make some recipes.
That'd be awesome.
I think they would love that.
I would like to do that a lot. Yeah.
Make some recipes, and we'll shoot that. And I guess we'll get to see you again. But thank you for tuning in. I hope that you enjoyed this episode. For those people that are watching that want to be a chef maybe, or particularly interested in being a chef, I will give you her contact information so that you can connect with her if you want to plug any social media.
Instagram is at Chef Nikkia Rhodes. I have a Twitter. It's at Chef Nikkia, I think. And that's that. And I'm pretty active on all those.
All right, cool. So definitely I'll have the information in the list below this video. But thank you for checking us out, and we look forward to seeing you next week when we have another special guest. Don't forget to subscribe. Be blessed.